Hi, and welcome back to the Vlogger Interviews. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be interviewing a podcaster. Now, podcasts are the audio equivalent of YouTube in a lot of ways, in that anybody can do it, but it really takes a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication to really make it happen. And I'm going to introduce you to a pretty extraordinary podcaster who has been working on his various podcasts for the last several years. And his current show, That Reporter Kid Speaks, features interviews and discussions and talks with up-and-coming comedians across Canada and the U.S. His name is Cassius Morris. His show is That Reporter Kid Speaks, and he's 13 years old.
You do fantastic things with podcasts, and you're doing a little bit on YouTube now too. So I wanted to find out how this whole thing began, first of all, and we'll go on from there.
Well, thank you, first of all. And I guess I just, I always say that I remember when I was really little. I was about maybe 6, and my grandpa gave me this old video camera that took the tapes. And I remember watching this thing in Canada here. It's like Much Music Spotlight or whatever, where they interview artists. And I remember pretending my sister was a star, and I was the interviewer, and I was looking through the camera. Nothing was recording, and I was just interviewing her. I also remember, taking a dictaphone and holding it up to the TV and pretending I was interviewing the TV. And, I guess the way I started the podcasting, I guess to answer your question, is that I wanted to start a Kiss fanzine, like a fan magazine about Kiss, and I was pretty much too lazy to do that, and I thought a podcast would be easier.
Too lazy. So you took something that was a lot harder. I mean, now you started out with, you're doing two types of podcasts, right? You've got the reporter, the Reporter Kid podcast, and the other one. Why don't we talk a little bit about what you're doing now?
Okay, well, what I'm doing now is a podcast called That Reporter Kid. That Reporter Kid Speaks, actually, and it's where I interview pretty much anybody that I find interesting. I'm mostly interviewing comics right now and people that are part of the Death Squad community. And should I explain what that is?
Yes, yeah, explain it.
Okay, well, it's a podcasting network involved with a lot of comedians, and I've really taken a liking to them, and I really like having them on my show.
Why are they interesting to you?
I find that the stuff that they talk about on their podcast is it's enlightening. I mean, it makes me realize that, there's other people that are, interesting and not run of the mill out there. And I like to feel like I'm kind of connected with these people.
You've talked about this on your podcast, that that most people your age don't do this sort of thing, don't have the interest in doing, or even the ability to concentrate and dedicate themselves to this sort of a thing. Why have you developed this interest, do you think?
I think that I kind of do it for the fruits of my labor. I always feel so proud when I'm finished with the podcast, especially when I get great feedback and, the emails, the tweets and all that. So I think that's definitely what keeps me going. I mean, I've had times where I've wanted to scrap it all and just forget it. But then when I get messages like the ones I do, it really encourages me.
And you've got a ton of followers. You've got almost 4,500 or more than 4,500 Twitter followers and all of this. Now, how long have you actually been doing podcasts?
I've been podcasting for about 4 years now. I started when I was 11.
That's amazing. But I mean, what did you discover as you've gone on over the last 4 years that you didn't understand in the very beginning in terms of how to talk to people and how to create an interesting show?
I've understood that my show's considered an interview show, but lately, especially in the last couple of weeks, I've been understanding that it doesn't always have to be an interview to be a podcast. I can have these interesting people on, and I can just simply have conversations. I mean, that's what a podcast is meant to be for. So that's probably the biggest realization I've had.
And you also have mentioned in one of your podcasts, you talked about some of your issues and the fact that you're bipolar and how that all fits into it. Could you talk a little bit about that for this audience?
Yeah, sure. Well, I am bipolar, and it makes me. It's. I also have ADHD, so it's kind of speculated that that's part of why I have such a knack for this. I mean, it's a speculation by some people, and they might be right, but I guess it kind of does all tie into it in a way, in some ways that I don't really understand. I guess.
But I mean, it's because you're able to create. I mean, I've tried a couple of times doing a podcast, and it's really really hard what you're doing, and to keep it going and talk to adults the way you do effectively isn't easy. I mean, you've done now that reporter kid is up to what? How many episodes now?
25.
And what is your goal with all of this? Do you know yet, or is it just having fun with it at this point, and we'll see where it goes?
Just having fun with it, and maybe to move on to a slightly larger audience, like maybe move up in the charts a little bit on iTunes and things like that, just so that it reaches more people. That's pretty much my goal right now.
And how are you building your audience beyond the podcast, people who find you on the podcast? How are you building your audience beyond that? How do you reach out to other people?
It's not really me as much as the people that listen to the show. They do a lot of telling others, and I try to do that too, but I guess I'm just trying to find ways. I don't really have that many.
And now and how do you use Twitter in terms of plugging into everything you're doing?
Well, Twitter is definitely the best promotional mechanism for me to reach out to people that listen to the show. Sometimes I'll ask people for retweets and I'll get a few, but a lot of the time you don't even have to ask. I mean, if they find it cool, they'll retweet it. And yeah, it's definitely a huge tool for me for sure.
And now here's a question. I know you've talked about this also on your own podcast, but in terms of trying to create quality content or interviewing somebody for a half an hour, is there a process you go through in terms of wanting to make it a good podcast that you follow? Any kind of not an outline, but
like a ritual?
A ritual or a structure that you follow to keep it interesting?
I try to make it a healthy balance between written down questions that I already have prepared and really listening to what they're saying and trying to come back with a response that can lead into more discussion.
Cool. I mean, so it's because you pretty much now these shows are how long?
Usually about 40 minutes at the most.
And now you're experimenting a little bit with YouTube. How's that going?
Not too well. I don't think that's for me. That's how I got the name That Reported Kids through YouTube, because it was originally my YouTube name, and I used to be really into it, but now I want to focus more on the podcasting. And
you've been now. I think I found you through Stitcher radio,
good.
And I think it somehow recommended. I started listening to podcasts only last fall. And somehow you popped up. I don't know. I don't even know where it came from or why it assumed that But it's really entertaining. Now, for other people your age, what advice would you give them, either YouTubers or podcasters, in terms of being able to dedicate? What does it take to do a good ongoing program like you do?
The one thing I really try to drive into people's minds that want to start podcasts is it's not going to come easy. I've been doing this for 4 years now, and I still have, less of an audience than I had the idea of when I first started. It's not going to come to you right away, and also nobody's going to make a fan base for you. You have to go out there and do that yourself. Even if you don't have many ways of promoting, you still need to use those one or two ways, and eventually it might grow.
Yeah. How has this all fit in with your parents, or has it been? Is there any kind of concern about that, or how have you felt about the fan base? Has that all been a great experience?
Definitely, it's a fantastic experience. My parents are really proud of me; they love it, and I'm at least it's not at the point where I'm getting people sending letters or whatever. At least it's not at that point, so it's manageable. yeah, so it's definitely really makes me happy.
And is it just recently where it's really started to grow the way it has been?
I found that ever since I had Brian Redband on the show, the creator of Death Squad, that's when it really started. People were starting to recognize me on Twitter, and yeah, so in the last few months.
Cool. So is there anything that you would like to tell people about?
Well, I would just say that if you want a podcast that's unique, that would have a lot of guests that you may be familiar with, you should check out my show. And also, if you want to be on the show or you know somebody that would be good, feel free to just, on the website, thatreporterkid.com, there's an email and Twitter and all that. And, I like to have not only, quote unquote famous people. So, yeah, I think that's a good reason to listen.
Thank you, Cassius. Remember, you can find That Reporter Kid on iTunes or visit the website, thatreporterkid.com. I will see you next time on the Vlogger Interviews. Whoa!